What is going on over in Kiev, Ukraine, and what does it mean for you? Well, here to bring us up to speed, explain what happened and what may happen in the future is Russian Studies Professor Stephen Jones from Mount Holyoke College. Thank you so much, Professor, for joining me. So start off with a basic foundation. Some people, especially Americans, may not be as familiar with what is going on over in the Ukraine. Start us off with what exactly has happened.
Well, Ukraine, of course, used to be part of the Soviet Union. After the Soviet Union collapsed in 1991, Ukraine became an independent country. It is a very complex country. There's a lot of disagreement between Ukrainians themselves about what it means to be Ukrainian and what sort of government they want. And what this crisis has revealed has been these differences between Ukrainians, exacerbated by the East-West conflict, if you like, between Russia on the one hand and the EU and the United States on the other. So the situation we have now is a very split country, with some of the population looking to Russia as the savior and many others in the population looking to the EU and the United States as the savior.
And you would say the conflict became exacerbated when the president defected basically to Russia, choosing Russia over the EU, and then, like you said, the country's kind of split.
Well, as he would say, this is Viktor Yanukovych, who was a democratically elected president of Ukraine in 2010, and as he sees it, he made a choice that he was entitled to make, which was to, and this was in November of last year, to accept $15 billion from Russia to save the Ukrainian economy. If he chose Europe, this is his view of course, then it would be an austerity program probably dominated by the IMF and other organizations, which would make it really tough for the Ukrainian economy. So he made that choice. But there were many in Ukraine, particularly in Kiev, the capital of Ukraine, who disagreed and argued that this was going back to an old relationship of Russian dominance in Ukraine, and they didn't want that. They wanted to belong to, let's say, a more prosperous Western-type organization like the European Union.
Why is Russia so scared to lose Ukraine to the EU?
Well, there are many, many reasons. It's very important strategically for Russia because it's a sort of buffer state, if you like, between Russia and Germany and the EU. Historically, Ukraine has always been very close to Russia and united with Russia for many centuries. There are strategic issues in the Black Sea, where Crimea is located, where all this is happening right now. They have a major naval port, Sevastopol, right there in Crimea, which they're very concerned about keeping. They don't want yet another country, Ukraine, like, say, the Baltic republics of Latvia and Estonia, joining the EU and getting closer to NATO. That's not what they want.
And that kind of brings us to the United States. It's kind of the United States, what do? If they get involved, it's like, all right, there goes the U.S. getting involved in yet another country that, they should keep their nose out of. But if they don't get involved, then it's kind of like why isn't the biggest nation in the world doing something about this? It's almost like damned if you do, damned if you don't. So what do you do?
Well, Obama has to think of it in different terms. It's not just about Ukraine anymore, although, of course, this is the eye of the storm. It really is about international law and whether Russia is accepting international law or whether we could call it a revisionist state that's trying to change the international environment and international law. This is not the first time that Russia has done this. Of course, very recently in Georgia, the Republic of Georgia in 2008, it invaded and de facto seized territories. It's doing the same in Ukraine. So this goes beyond Ukraine. This is about Russia. It's about international law.
Should more Americans be concerned about this than maybe they are?
Well, I'm an American and I'm concerned. I think that this does set a very dangerous precedent. So if Russia can do it in Ukraine, where might it go next? There are many former Soviet republics that broke away in 1991 and became independent, who have Russian speakers or ethnic Russians in their new states. And Putin has said that Russia has the right to protect these Russians and intervene on their behalf. that means he has the right to invade almost any country that's on Russia's borders, because most of those countries have Russian speakers and Russians living there. So this, this guarantees instability in that region, and the United States has to be concerned about that.
What would be the fallout if something were to happen, or maybe even if we don't do anything and this continues and gets worse? What would be the fallout for the average American citizen?
Well, it all depends on what happens. If we have a diplomatic solution, then there won't be much fallout for American citizens. However, if it comes to war, which is highly possible, then it will mean a dramatic military conflict, if you like, in Europe, once again, a repeat perhaps of what we saw in Yugoslavia in the 1990s. It will mean refugees, it will mean instability, it will mean down the road very difficult relations with Russia and a new Cold War, and that cannot be good for Europe, and if it's not good for Europe, it's not good for the United States.
It seems almost as if it's really U.S. versus Russia as opposed to Ukraine. Ukraine is maybe almost being used as a ploy to...
Well, again, it's Ukraine's caught in the middle, and it is this sort of middle place, between Europe and Russia. But this sort of conflict immediately becomes internationalized. It's a responsibility of all states that can have influence. The question is, do they have enough influence to bring this to a satisfactory conclusion without war? And there's a big question mark there, because as Obama and former US presidents have seen, even great powers like the United States have limited influence and limited capabilities in conflicts like this.
Well, we'll just have to, at this point, wait and see what happens. Professor Stephen Jones from Mount Holyoke College, thank you.
Thank you very much.